Rabbi, you have to center yourself a little bit. I noticed watching the YouTube.
Oh yeah.
You're off to one side.
Well, which class? This one? No.
Yeah.
The one which has the trees behind me?
No, these.
These. Okay, I think that's
better.
it. Okay.
That's better.
All right, so friends, to review where we're up to. So, without repeating all of the detail there, but the bottom line is that Yaakov sends a message to Esau. This is after his sojourn in Haran for 22 years, working for his uncle Laban, and emerges successful with the 12 tribes. Well, Binyamin isn't born yet, but Joseph is born, Yosef is born, and he's returning back home. And he sends a message to his brother Esau, and basically the message is, there's many layers to the message. The simple meaning to the message is, Rashi explains it the simple meaning of the verse. Maybe we'll close it because I'm sorry, it gets noisy. Is the idea that you're nothing to be envious of, because he says to him, Father blessed me with the fat of the land and so on. I'm not a landowner. I have an ox, I have a donkey. I mean, he had a lot. And he had sheep, and he had maidservants and so on. But the blessing of Father was not fulfilled in me. So you have no reason to be envious, and let's reconcile after all these years. And they meet, and we all know the story. There is a temporary moment of reconciliation. In fact, so much so that Esau says to Yaakov, let's join forces and travel together. And Yaakov says, I can't keep up with you, your pace. We are all young. You go ahead. Rashi says, we don't find they ever met up with him. How could he have said something that he didn't fulfill? He says, I'll meet up with you. And Rashi answers, he will. Hasn't done it yet, he will. As the Moshiach comes, and V'olah, we spoke about this Shabbos morning, last week, V'olah Moshim Bahar Tzion, and the saviors will, so not Bahar Tzion, Bahar Esau, the saviors will ascend Mount Seir, which is the Mount of Esau. There he will be judged, but most importantly, rectified, and then Yaakov and Esau will have joined forces and become one, and that's the Messianic era. So he said to him, again going back to the text, it was just as a review all of last week. He said to him, I have an ox and a donkey. So on a deeper level here now, what he's saying to him is, this is in the light of Chassidus, today being what? The 10th of Kislev, today being a big day in the Chabad Chassidic calendar. Today's the Chag HaGeula, the day of the liberation of the second Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Dov Ber, known as the Mittel Rebbe, the middle Rebbe, because he was in between. He was so called in the third generation and stuck. In the third generation, he was the one in between, the first and the third. So the Chassidim of the Tzemach Tzedek referred to him as the Mittel Rebbe, and that name remained till this day. The middle Rebbe, even though there's 7 Rebbes in total. So Chassidus explains that what does he mean? What does Yaakov mean to tell Yaakov, I have an ox and a donkey? So the illusion of the donkey is that I'm ready for Moshiach. You need work, and if you work really hard, you can be ready too. He wasn't, and we have to work with Esau, and it's been going on for a long time. But he's telling him that I took care of Lavan, I elevated all of the sparks that were in Lavan's domain. The whole purpose of creation, another way of stating it all, is to elevate the sparks, the divine sparks that are embedded in creation. The 288 sparks, that's the number, and they break down into huge numbers. All but 86 were elevated by the time the Jews left Egypt. So ever since then, it's 86 sparks, which break down into many details, same numerical value as Elikim, and the same numerical value as Hateva, nature, 86, Hateva, 5, 2, I'm sorry, Hateva. 5, 400, 2, and 70 is 86. So we have been elevating these sparks. It's all Esav ever since. So he's telling him that Lavan I finished with. And it's you, but I'm ready. From my end, I'm ready for Moshiach. And that's hinted to in the donkey because one of the prophecies is the Moshiach, Ani from Zechariah, Ani a poor man and riding on a donkey. That's his allusion to the donkey. The question we asked last week was, why is he invoking the imagery of the donkey? What's the problem? It's a prophecy, so that's what he's invoking. But what's the question? Last week's question. The question is that there are in fact two prophecies, not one, about the way Moshiach comes. And they're very different. On the surface, they are contradictory. And that's because they're speaking about different scenarios. There's two ways that Moshiach can come. There's also a third, kind of a hybrid way, but in extreme, there's two ways. Zochu or Loi Zochu. Meritorious or not meritorious. If we're meritorious, then two things. One, Mashiach comes before the deadline and can come any time before the deadline. In fact, the Talmud says, the Gemara says, that the potential for Mashiach's coming began already at the year 4000. The famous Gemara, which we quoted here recently, if I'm not mistaken, the world exists, says the Gemara, for 6,000 years. And then, in the 7th millennium, it's a whole different order of being. That's even the post-Messianic era. But the 6,000 years are 2,000 void, 2,000 Torah, and 2,000 Moshiach. The last, so since the year 4000, it's been the potential for Mashiach's coming. So if we merit, then Mashiach comes earlier than the deadline, which is the day before, I guess, the year 6000. That'd be the, one day of the Messianic era, which is unthinkable. So it comes earlier at any time since the year 4000. Truth is, it could have come before too, even if Adam and Eve had not sinned. That would have been the Messianic era. Whatever. So you fill it in from last week. A, earlier, and B, the second critical thing. Yeah. The second critical factor. No, if meritorious is two things. A, early, and B, miraculously. This is the... miraculously. Pardon? If we are meritorious. We are. That's the prophecy of the book of Daniel. That's where it is.
And also with the base of Mikdash will just come...
Right, all this comes miraculously. Daniel's prophecy says... Mashiach comes there's the clouds of heaven, and we're gathered in on the wings of eagles. It's all miraculous. Zechariah is the one that has the poor man riding on the donkey. So this is the answer. There's two scenarios. If we're meritorious, then it happens A, miraculous, A, earlier, and B, miraculously. If we're not meritorious, then it'll come slowly, not miraculously, and in the time, whenever the designated time, which has not been revealed. It's clearly before the year 6000, and not the day before either, obviously. But no one knows consciously when that is. Although it must be stated that all the, not just the Rebbe, but all the great Jewish leaders, the last, starting from the Baal Shem Tov, started to indicate that we're there. We're there very close. As time goes on, it gets even closer. Now, the sun... I'm not protected. It's playing these games here, and I'm still... Oh, so now you guys are out of the sun. It moves quickly, so I'm going to move back... What?
We're not being direct.
Right, so I'm going to go back there.
It's finished. It's gone.
Yeah, so it moves so quickly.
The phone's going to be in the sun if you put it here.
Yeah, it's going to hear the sun's going to be...
Because right now, the reflection is... They can't... I'm about to see a thing. Anyway, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe just move it over.
This is the site to sit on, right? You'll be on it, but
But not...
that will be fine.
Ah, Michael, you're right. My face will be in the sun, but not the camera. That's what counts. Okay, so I'm going to move. You guys move apart for a second. What's this game called?
Part to see is musical chairs.
Musical chairs. So
Sing a thing.
let's have some music.
They're
Yeah.
gonna change
Hi.
chairs.
Mark, why don't you go on the other side?
What do you want me to do? Everybody's moving over.
Gotta pay a premium if you want to sit beside me.
Oi, are you kidding?
He's fixing my urine sign.
Now the sun is right on your face now, I see.
No, it's not just that. The camera's also not.
Okay, how about on this end?
We have, okay, right now this is good for the next few minutes.
All right.
It'll be good. Okay. So what's the, now getting to the question. So why, if Yaakov is ready now, this is even before the Yaakov is saying he's ready even before the year 4000, which the Gemara says is the time of Mashiach's potential coming. He's even earlier. He's really meritorious. Tremendously meritorious. He's saying, I'm ready now. So what's the question? It's a contradiction. If you're ready now, so what's the imagery he conveys? The donkey. But the donkey is not the imagery for early meritorious, for Zachu. It's the image for not being meritorious. Poor man riding on a donkey means Mashiach comes slowly and naturally, and it's not the very opposite of in the clouds of heaven and the temple descending from heaven.
Is he speaking for the entire Jewish people? He says, I'm ready.
Well, he is the entire Jewish people at that point. It's him and his children.
That's him, basically.
Yeah. So if they're all ready, it's contradictory. How, if he's ready now, then how does he use the image of the chamor, which is the image, the donkey, for not being meritorious when he clearly is? This isn't the deadline. He's way early. That was the question we asked last week. Is the question clear? Yeah. We started to answer. And we started to explain the meaning of the word chamor and why that's the image. Why is that the image of Moshiach coming in the way of not meritorious, naturally and slowly? It could be he's walking with a walking stick. What's he have to? Moshiach is riding on a donkey. What does that mean? So we started to explain last week that the Hebrew word for donkey is chamor. Yes, and chamor, which means donkey, the same letters, same word as the word chomer, which means the coarse materialism. Gashmiyut is materialism, and chumriyut is even more corporeal, more physical, even a lower level of materiality. We also pointed out last week the nature of the donkey, how that's reflected in the very nature of the donkey. We said this many times, no? Well, you can.
Stubborn.
So right. So why is stubborn the symbol of coarse materialism? Well, obviously it points to what?
Israel is also stubborn.
Right. But so what's stubbornness? The donkey holds its ground. It won't move. Very hard to budge a donkey if he doesn't want to walk. So why is that the symbol of materialism?
Ego?
You got a place right there, Robert. Because, first of all, ego. The ego, number one, correct. And now on a more kind of I'm looking for something else too that we said last week. I'm hinting to it now by telling you that the donkey doesn't move. It holds its ground. Aside from ego, there's something much more elemental about the donkey that makes it the symbol of
Stubbornness.
Aside, that's the ego, stubbornness. We said that, right? We just made that point. Now I'm saying something else. There's another element related to this that makes the chamor, the donkey, the symbol of chumriyut, of materiality, of the physical world. And that is, in the physical world, two things cannot occupy the same place. You can't have absolute unity in the physical world. Two things merging, it's better. Two things merging and becoming one is not possible in the physical world. In the world of ideas, they can. You can have an idea, and I can have an idea, and then the two ideas can merge and create a third or a nuanced and very textured. It's one idea. It's one idea. But in the physical world, you can't do that. Physical world, the nature of it is, it takes up space. Chamor, like the donkey that you cannot move. You follow what I'm saying? So that's a very profound, deep reason that explains the association between the word chumriyut, that means, again, coarse materiality, and the donkey, because what defines this physical world is the idea that two things cannot occupy the same space. And as soon as you get to a higher world, that's not true anymore. Those limitations fall away. Like I said, even in our physical world, we have the world of ideas. That's not the world of chumriyut. That's the world of seichel. And in the world of seichel, ideas can meet, and so on. Souls can meet. Meeting of minds and meeting of emotions, but not physically. You can get very close, but you can't actually become one. So that is why the chamor represents chumriyut. I was going to add something else now, and I just flitted in and out of my mind to try and retrieve it before it goes out the window. Or try and contain it. It'll come to me, I guess, later. Just more about this idea of not taking up space.
Things can't be in the two places at the same time.
In two places at the same time. Yeah.
Physical,
But spiritually, yes. Ideas can be. My idea can be all over the place. But I'll just add this. What made the Holy Temple, the Beis HaMikdash, was unique ultimately, but the Beis HaMikdash was this point that space did not take up space. That the Ark, the Aron, didn't take up space, which we've discussed in the past. But that's the point of it's incredibly manifested kind of physically, though it's impossible to imagine, the idea of pure Ruchnius. Okay, so having said that, let's continue. So we're in the middle of page Tav Beis. We're going to repeat the paragraph that we said last week. And it's going to add a very important point. The explanation is, again, looking to answer why Yaakov is invoking the imagery and describing his readiness for redemption, why he invokes the lesser prophecy, the Oni v'rochev ala chamor. Answer: Hamila chamor, the word chamor, donkey, more al chomer, conveys the idea of the physical, the hardcore physical. Chumriyut begashmiyut, corporeality and materiality. Now, here comes the big news. Kishem, we said this last week, right? Kishem kishetafkido shilcha hachamor. Just like the purpose, the function of a donkey is lahavil et rochvo limkom sharochev eno yachol hagi elav bekochot atzmo. The idea is the person employs the donkey because it takes him to a place that he couldn't get himself. If he could, he wouldn't take the donkey. He uses the donkey because he can't go by himself. Can't get there, or at least in the same time. So here comes the extraordinary thing, that the neshama comes down to the world to ride the donkey. So who's the donkey?
Body.
Physical body.
The body. Yeah, the body. Exactly. And by riding the body, somehow the neshama, the soul, which is a purely spiritual entity, is elevated to a higher place than it would be if it never came down to the world and rode the body. That's the paradox. That this physical lowest world of time and space and these incredible limitations, yet embedded in this world is a very deep investment of Hashem, of very high sparks. We gave last week, you will recall, 3 illustrations to explain why the lowest is rooted in the highest. Remember the 3 illustrations from the physical world? We gave 3 illustrations. So the neshama comes down to the world in order to access the very deep and high sparks that are embedded in the body and in physical things at large in this physical world. So the stubbornness of the donkey on a deep, deep level, what it really is a distortion of and a reflection of, the donkey says, I am, and nobody else. That's what the physical world says. This book is on this table, and this place, nothing else can be in this place. Every physical thing screams, as it were, I am. There's no room in my space for anybody else's, anybody else. It's the ultimate ego, as we all pointed out. But it's not just ego on the human plane. It defines the whole nature of materiality. So the extraordinary thing is, the deep truth is, that the I am of materiality is a distortion of the I am of God. Because the truth of God is that He's exclusive. God is truly exclusive. And the physical world also claims exclusivity. Each thing it claims, like Pare was the extreme. He said, I am and I made myself. It was the ultimate raw expression of the material world, complete denial of anything other than his own reality. We all suffer from that malady to one degree or the other, because that's the nature of the physical world. I am.
He said also, I made the physical world.
And he was the creator. I made myself, he's the creator. It's a funny thing, but he used to go to every morning he would bathe in the Nile. And the Nile was worshipped. So bathing in the Nile was a statement of he and the Nile, he created the Nile, he is one with the source of life. But it was much more than that. He went to the Nile every morning to relieve himself. It was the one time a day he did that when nobody would know. Because if he's God, then surely he doesn't have to relieve himself.
He doesn't have to go to the bathroom.
No, he doesn't. So he kept that a deep, dark, smelly secret in the Nile.
He was in denial.
Still smells.
He was in denial. Yeah.
That's a good one.
So what are we saying? A very deep point, friends. That this world is really where the eye of God can be accessed. If you go up in any higher spiritual worlds, even one rung up our world, never mind all of the heavens and the higher worlds, there's no I am that I am up there. In heaven, all the levels of heaven, there's God and there's also, and therefore there's me. There's the experience and the acknowledgement that there's a creator, but we don't feel that here. There's no I am in spirituality. It doesn't exist. It's you are, and therefore me. Okay, there's levels of spirituality, greater and greater degrees of nullification, but it's common to all levels of kedusha, holiness. Spirituality is that God is the first reality and only reality. Not so this world. This world, I am, and can walk around in complete denial of a creator altogether. Absolute ego. Again, we're all struggling with that to whatever degree. But the point I'm saying is that how could this be? How could a creation walk around, a creation of God saying, I am that I am? Because embedded in you is the I am that I am of God. We're just distorting it. The ego, which only exists in this world, at its root, deep, 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 is really rooted in the ultimate I, and that's Hashem. And that's part of the paradox of the neshama coming down to the world to access the very I am of God. Because heaven is not the I am of God. Heaven is God's revelation, God's light, God's beauty, God's attributes, God's midot. It's all divine and holy. But the eye of God is obscured in heaven, paradoxically. As in, blinded by the light. Precisely because heaven is such powerful revelations of God's attributes, the very revelations themselves, paradoxically, obscure His unknowable essence. And where is His essence to be accessed? In this world of darkness, where there's no revelation. Where people walk around with, I am. That's really an echo, a distant, distorted echo of the I am of God. And that's why the neshama comes down into the chomer, the Esavs, the physical world, it's all part of the package of ego, is to redeem, fix, heal, access that where that I am comes from. You're really expressing the I am of Hashem. And we explained last week why that is so. Why dafka in concealment is the eye of God accessed. I just gave another reason now, moments ago, because I said, where there's revelation, you can't see the sun orb when the sun is shining. The revelation obscures the sun. If you put on these special glasses, you can look straight at the sun. Why? Because you're eclipsing all of the revelation of the light that emanates. You can see the orb of the sun. That's a model. The higher levels of heaven are light. Here there's no light. So what's left? Just Hashem, Atzmut, Anochi. But it's concealed. The dark glasses, it's concealed. You need to discover that and redeem these sparks, in the words of Kabbalah. But last week we were giving related explanations. How, remember I asked you the question, where are you truly invested or more deeply invested? Where you express how you naturally feel at a given moment, or you have a response, whatever, and you don't say it. You contain yourself. What do we say? What do you know from your own experience? Where are you really investing the depth of your strength? It's when what? When you contain yourself. For the observer, you're not saying anything. You know, you want to get very angry. If you did something, someone did something to you that is really hurtful, painful, angry, justifiably, and you want to say something, or love, whatever the emotion happens to be, and you contain yourself, you're really more present, you've invested more, you've dug really deep to the core of your being than when you express yourself. And yet, you're not expressing anything at all. That's the paradox. That gives us some insight into this irony, that in this world where God is completely concealed, He's really invested more. So Gevura is really higher than Chesed. Okay, so summary of all of this. You just give me the word now. So a donkey, what's the point? What in this world we use a donkey for what purpose? In order to? No, simply. Now give me the deeper level. First, let's start with this physical model, and we're explaining its meaning. The donkey is a beast of burden. Its purpose is to carry the load of the person. He employs it because he'll get to his destination in a way he couldn't on his own. What's that symbolic of? What is that? More than symbolic, what is actually expressing on a very simple level in our world is expressive of what? Of the... Who's the rider of the donkey? But what's the donkey? The donkey is, on a deeper level, the body, physicality. The rider of the donkey is the soul. The soul comes down in the world to ride the donkey, to be taken to a destination that if the soul would remain in heaven would never arrive. The soul in heaven can ascend every day for eternity, higher and higher, and is always going to be in God's, using the metaphor before, light, but never touch His essence, never touch the eye of God. Where does the neshama touch the eye of God? Incredibly, through the physical mitzvah done in this world with the chumriyut of the world, for all of the reasons we try to share. So now let's read that in the text. We're at 3 lines from the top of that middle paragraph after the dash. Kach hadvorim agashmi. So in the same way that the donkey takes the rider to a destination otherwise inaccessible. Kach hadvorim agashmim, so too the material world. When a Jew engages the physical world as he should. How does he do that as he should? How do we know how to engage the physical world? What's the should way? Kidiboy, as is fitting, as is appropriate. Torah and mitzvot, that's what they're all for. It's how you engage the world physically. How you live every moment of your day, soul in the body, that's the purpose of the mitzvot. So if that's done properly, what's the consequence? What's the result? Umegalim. And thereby the soul engages the world and therefore reveals or redeems or accesses at nitzotzot, page tafbet, nitzotzot hakdusha ve'elokut, this holy and godly sparks, hatmunim behem, which are invested where? In the physical world. Then like the rider is elevated, taken to a destination, magbiim et haneshama, this lifts the soul, umeviim ota, and elevates and brings her ledarga nalit yoter, to a much loftier level, mizu shaneshama ita yechola lagi eleh bekochot atzma, more than the soul could ever get through its own effort, being in heaven and rising and rising and rising, light, higher, more intense, more intense, more intense. But the eye of Hashem, never. Here, this world, in the chumriut, in the chamar, in the body, in the physical mitzvah, in the tzedakah, in the tefillin, in the kosher food, in the way we live and love and are born and leave the world, for that matter. After 120 years, well, better said, no one's exiting now. Moshiach is coming, so we'll carry on here in this physical world. But the point is that it's dafka in these physical acts, the precision of the physical acts guided by Torah and mitzvot, that the soul accesses the eye of God. The eye of materiality then becomes the eye of God. That I am, that Pharaoh so profoundly distorted, in the end comes out to mean and express that I am of God Himself. By the way, since we're talking about Pharaoh, it's also hinted to in the word Pharaoh. Like everything is hinted in the language and the words, like the word chamor, donkey. We've now discovered, how profound that word is, and why it's reflected in the donkey of all creatures. So the word Pharaoh, actually, it's appropriate this morning. We're having a bris.
Multiply.
No. That's
No.
that's Peiresh Vov. This is Peiresh Ayin. Close. I gave you a hint because we're having a bris this morning. So every bris, there's two things. There's the cutting and the tearing back of the membrane that exposes the organ. That word, to tear back, is called priya. That's the word. That's the word parei, peish, reish, ayin. Hinting to that tearing back and exposing the essence of parei, which is the embodiment of ego and materiality and arrogance to the ultimate degree, that our job is to tear back that concealment and reveal ultimately the eye of God, which is connected to that idea of the bris, the eternal covenant between God and the Jewish people, dafke in the body. Dafke in the body. And the part of the body that produces another physical body. That's where the covenant is, not in the nose and the ear. But dafke there, you must have wondered all your life, why is the covenant there? So one of the answers is because the covenant is all about connecting to Hashem in the physical body. Well, that's as physical as the body gets, because it's from there that another physical body is created. And therein is the covenant that's sealed in the flesh as a result of revealing physically. The physical act is cutting and tearing back the membrane. It's all expressing the whole divine service is to tear back, as it were, the concealment that defines this world and access the eye of Hashem.
So the Shema comes down.
Oh, yes, the question I had from last week was,
Yeah.
was why is just doing the mitzvah, the physical act of doing the mitzvah, good enough? You don't have to have
Intent.
You don't have to have intent or feeling. Just
Okay, so first of all, it must be said that one should, and it's a commandment in the Torah, to have awe of God, love of God, and intent. But as you correctly point out, except for prayer is the only exception, because prayer is all about intent. At least the general intent of you're standing and you're addressing God, even if you don't know exact meaning of the word, but it's got to be a general intent. But other mitzvot, the ruling is, at least according to one opinion, that intent is not required, and that's pretty much the final ruling. So if someone, ends up just eating matzah Seder night and had no realization, he did the mitzvah, even without having a realization.
It's like the kids who come around in Vicari Square on Friday to put on tefillin.
Right, and people are just doing it.
Just do it.
Yeah, well,
what's the purpose of just
first of all, there is intent. There is an intent. The person that's doing it is aware that this is a mitzvah, and it's in the Torah, so there is some measure of intent there.
But they could just be doing it just to get rid of these
That's
two
true.
kids.
That's true. So, but the answer you have from what we just said now, because the ultimate intent is a heavenly thing. Intent, understanding, that is a spiritual component. But what are we learning here? That it's dafkin the chamor, dafkin materiality, that the eye of God is access. So the essence is the act, because you've engaged a physical body, and it's done the mitzvah. So the essential connection happens. Now the role of intent is important. The analogy that is given in Chassidus is to explain the interplay between the act and intent is a diamond in the rough versus a polished diamond. A diamond in the rough is a diamond, but as you look at it, it's uninspiring and evokes no oohs and ahs. In fact, to the untrained observer, it's just another rock. But the truth is, it is a diamond. But it's not really it's not having the effect, a conscious effect that diamonds should have, even though the essential value is there. So the role of intent is the polishing of the diamond.
I understand that, but I'm just saying the diamond in the rough is just a diamond in the rough, and somebody who doesn't know anything about diamonds looks at it and it's just a rock.
Right, that's right. So someone watching this, exactly the point. This guy putting on film, he just did it to get the kids off his back. That's because he doesn't know. But the truth is, the objective truth is, that is the essential diamond. Now, is it enough? No. It's not enough. Another analogy, we'll conclude with that. I'll give you two more analogies.
The most extreme example is the coin that fell out of someone's pocket, picked up by a beggar.
That's right. You lose a coin, you don't even know you lost a coin, and a poor man finds it. Tzedakah is done. Coin, the connection is made, and you have no conscious awareness. Or the woman that's swimming, that's swimming in the ocean, and it happens to turn out that this is the time she needs to go to the mikveh, and she's ritually pure, and she cohabitates with her husband, and that's now permissible by God's law. And she's not even aware that there was you're not allowed to, and you are allowed to, but she's pure. No awareness at all. That happens. But the big but
the
is
mitzvah is significant to who? To God.
To God. The connection happens. The access of the eye, the soul's, the riding of the donkey, the soul's connection to the eye of God that awaits appreciation when Moshiach comes. The appreciation is not current, but the connection happens. It happens. It's significant objectively. Mitzvah means connection. A connection is forged now between that physical object and the divine. Forged meaning the essence of God is being unlocked there. It's just waiting to be appreciated.
A connection means a meeting of minds.
No, here we mean a connection. We mean the word connection here means accessing the divine spark in the physical object and redeeming it. But it hasn't been appreciated, it's redeemed yet. But it is. It's been a critical quantum change. Quantum change. This was a body that did not put on film before. Now it's a physical body that did. That body's different. The divine is now accessed there. And Moshiach will come, will appreciate what that means. The appreciation will come later. Yeah. Although we are commanded to appreciate it now. That's where intent comes in. To whatever degree we can, we should appreciate it and understand it now. But the truth is, whatever degree we do will only be fully appreciated then. Both the essence and the appreciation of all of that.
You wanted to bring an example of an example.
You're going to bring in this other examples is the example that Rebbe gives in Chassidus, it's 9 o'clock, is the language we use always, that you hear every day in Chabad, is to the purpose to make this physical world a home for God. All right? So, using the metaphor of a home, a mitzvah that is done without kavanah, without intent, is analogous to putting up the walls and everything is there, but it's not clean. Doesn't mean it's not scrubbed and clean. It's a similar example. The basic edifice is there, but it's really not livable. It's still dusty and beautiful. The kavanah cleanses the air. It's very dusty. But intent is analogous to making that home truly sparkle and attractive and livable. Now, even when it's not cleaned, it is livable and it will protect you from the elements. But it's hardly, an enjoyable experience. What's going to make your home enjoyable is not just that there's a faucet and there's plumbing and there is a roof and stuff, but it's decorated and it's clean and so on. That's the ooh-ah of the home. So that's the role of intent. Now, but cleanliness without cleaning what is meaningless. So you're cleaning the home. So kavanah is important. Intent is important. That's a big part of what Chassidus wants us to do through the study of Chassidus, etc., is to make this home for God luminous, polish the diamond, make the home glitter and shine, and have all it be decorated. So that's another analogy. There's a third one for God willing. We'll continue. All right, folks. We still haven't concluded why Yaakov invokes. We're kind of getting there. Why he invokes the imagery of the donkey. All right. Thanks for listening, folks.